Hey, what's up, guys? So today I want to talk about widgets because I've just been thinking about them a lot, and just, I kind of talked about it in my last video, but I want to get a little more in depth for this one. So I want to start off by showing you some stats. So Reap hit me up, and he's like one of the big guys in our alliance, probably like neck and neck with me, of like top guy there as far as power is concerned. So I'll definitely rather lead. So he shares with me like a couple of scouts that he did of himself and of a guy named Batman, who's also like top there up there. So we Batman like shot up out of nowhere. So we're kind of like, oh damn, like what's up with this guy? We gotta get him, to be a rally lead or whatever. But anyways, so then he scouts me, and this is what it shows, right? Like, I don't want to show their stats because some people are sensitive about that, but me, I don't really care. So this is, he scouts me, and I'm like, look at my stats, and they're like not even close to as good as the other people's stats. Now, as we talked about before, this is my offensive people, right? So none of the widgets are working here. So you can see like I'm in the 7s, I'm in the 6s, but nothing breaks that. Like I'm not in the 5s, not in the 8s, but nothing really breaks between the 6s and the 7s. So then there's R, they're like up there. So then he's like, oh yeah, you didn't do Eric, you got to change it. So I like do that, and I screw up twice. But on the third one, here comes the scout, right? And look at these numbers. This is me with my defensive people. And these numbers just skyrocket, right? Like, look at this, 8, 9, 9, 8, 7, they're way up there. The defensive widgets, they work every time, like every time that you're getting attacked, they're going to work. Even scouting, apparently, but they aren't going to work offensively. So this is the big difference between offensive and defensive widgets. Now, this also ties into like some interesting thing about these heroes. Like, if you look back at like the first generation, when you have like Amadeus and Hildy, these are both infantry heroes, but they have offensive widgets, right? Rally attack up by 15, and then you go over here to Helga, and hers is, I don't even have hers, I didn't even unlock that thing yet. Hers is lethality up 15, right? Now, if you go through the rest of these, none of these other infantry people have any kind of widgets that do anything offensively. And so I was kind of like, oh man, is this the way it's going to be forever, or is it going to change? So I started looking at WAS, like Whiteout Survival, and I went all the way through Generation 13 in there, and not a single infantry had an offensive widget. They were all defensive all the way up. So that's kind of interesting, because that kind of illustrates why Amadeus is so important, so powerful, and how he can maintain power all the way through, like potentially through Generation 6 is what I hear. Generation 4, I hear that he might not survive, but up to that, he's a pretty solid hero. And mainly, it's the fact that he has that offensive widget. Now, if you're kind of going through this, then that kind of starts setting the stage for what you're doing. In the first generation, you've got offensive Amadeus, offensive Helga, and then you've got defensive, I believe. Let me just double check. Defensive Saul, right? So in those beginning stages, like, you're really not understanding the whole value of these widgets and how much they influence things. And again, like, these other stats they have here of like infantry attack, infantry defense, these are all additive, meaning you're just going to add them to the pile, right? And same with these skills, you're just going to add these up. It's going to add 25 points to that. But as I talked about previously, the widgets are going to do something where you add the amount there. So for like him, Amadeus, you're going to take this 15% and add it on top of whatever the typical rally attack is, and then you're going to multiply his entire stats, and not just his stats, but the entire rally attack by by 15%. So you're getting like a much bigger increase. So the bigger your base stats are, the bigger the widget is going to influence those. And the second generation comes out, and who do we have? We have Marlin, who comes out with like a 15% offensive widget. So that's the first offensive widget I have for archers. And then we get Hildy, who's a defensive cav, right? She's going to give you 15% health. So, and then you got her, who's also a defensive infantry. And those are all the generation heroes. Oh, and Generation 1, sorry, we didn't get through this person, but Jabal has also lethality of 15%. So she's also a good one. That increases. I believe that's true, right? 15? Yeah. So she's going to be troop lethality. So in the first generation, you can have like essentially a pretty good offensive. You're going to have offensive infantry, offensive cavalry, and then a defensive archer. And then in the second generation comes around, you've got a defensive cavalry that comes along. You've got an offensive archer and a defensive infantry. So at this point, you can start making your widgets. If you're focusing on widgets, you can start making those into like, you know, you could have infantry of Zoe, Hildy as your cav, and then solid would be your archer, and that would be a defensive set. The offensive set would be essentially like Amadeus or Hildy. Those are the only ones that are ever going to be offensive. And then, let's see, did we get an offensive hero for Archer? Yeah, you get Marlin. And then the Cav, you're kind of stuck with, you got Jabal, which is also a good infantry. So those are your sets that you're going to have in the second generation. Third generation, you're going to have essentially Amadeus or Helga, if you're still playing with her. Marlin and Petra, that's going to be your offensive one. And defense, you're going to have Eric, Hildy, and Jaeger. So once you get those locked in, that's essentially how you're going to get to those like really mind-blowing stats. Like on offense, if you're doing a rally, you're going to be with these people, you're going to like shoot up like crazy. Like, let me see my most recent one that I did here. So here's my most recent rally attack, all offensive, and here we are on the 9s again, right? And if you don't have these, then these are going to be much lower. And then on the, let's see, here I defeated this, but these might, let me see if I got one where it has my real heroes. So here's my real heroes against a beast. You can see here they're about like the 6s and 7s again. We're not hitting anything crazy. It's only when you get the rallies that you get crazy on these. It's only when you hit the defense, when you're on defense, do you get those crazy stats for those other defensive. So that's kind of like how this game gets in that into that section where it's like you're really separating yourself from other people strictly by widgets. Now, the best way to get widgets, I believe, is Buccaneer Bounty, right? Like, this one is going to give you so many widgets, potentially. Let me see if I can go to the Emporium right now. So I think they give you like 200 potential widgets that you can get from here. And you need 270 to max out any hero, starting from scratch. So it gets you really, really close to that. And then the other one you can do is Champagne Fair, where if you have the extra shards or whatever it is, you can trade those in and get more. But I think they cap you out at like 10. So you can never really get all of them, but you can get pretty damn close. But obviously widgets are one of those things that, one, you got to pay for, and then two, they aren't going to be good forever because they're only going to be attached to that one hero, and you're not going to be able to transfer them. But that is really where you separate yourself from being like a rally joiner to a rally leader, is the widgets. So anyways, that's my take on widgets, and I hope you find that helpful.